This is the History of Portugal podcast, an Eat to My Own Beat podcast. New episodes every Friday. Check us out on our Facebook page, the History of Portugal podcast, on YouTube, as well as my website, www.eattomyownbeat.com.
This is the History of Portugal podcast, episode 120, Second County of Portugal. In 1093, Alfonso VI nominated his son-in-law Raymond of Burgundy as Count of Galicia, then including modern Portugal as far as Cumbria, through Alfonso himself retained the title of king over the same territory. However, concern for Raymond's growing power led Alfonso in 1096 to separate Portugal and Cumbria from Galicia and grant them to another son-in-law, Henry of Burgundy. We wed to Alfonso VI's illegitimate daughter, Teresa. Henry chose Guimarães as the base for the newly formed country. Conando Portuguesen, known at the time as the Terra Portugalense or Provincia Portucalense, which would last until Portugal achieved its independence, recognized by the Kingdom of Leon in 1143. Its territory included much of the current Portuguese territory between the Minho River and the Tagus River. Count Henry continued the Reconquista in western Iberia and expanded the country's dominions. He was also involved in several intrigues inside the Leonese court, together with his cousin Raymond and sister-in-law Urasa of Castile, in which he supported Raymond's ascension in return of the promises and autonomy of independence for Portugal. In 1111, the Muslims conquered Santarém. When Count Henry died in 1112, the population of the country of Portugal, including the powerful families, favored independence. Henry's widow Teresa took the reins on behalf of her young son and allied herself with Galician nobility in order to challenge her sister queen Urasa's dominance and briefly used the little title queen. However, she was defeated by Urasa in 1121 and forced to accept a position of feudal subservience to the Leonese state. Her own son, Alfonso Henriques, took the reins of the government in 1128, routing his mother's forces in the Battle of São Mamede near Guimarães. After the battle, he began to exhibit a seal with a cross and the word Portugal, and continued to win battles. Supported by the nobles of Entre Douro and Minho, nevertheless. Even between 1128 and 1139, he never used the title king, but rather that of princeps or infant, which means, in fact, that he could not resolve on his own account the issue of a political category. That is, he had to admit that it depended on the consent of Alfonso VII, who was in fact the legitimate heir of Alfonso VI. Also, he never used the title count, which would place him in a clear position of independence vis-a-vis the King of Leon and Castile. It was his triumph of Battle of Ourique in 1139 which led to the proclamation as a King of Portugal by his troops. Finally, in 1143, his nominal overlord Alfonso VII of Leon and Castile recognized the de facto independence of Portugal in the Treaty of Zamora.
Thank you for listening to the History of Portugal podcast, a Eat to My Own Beat podcast. New episodes every Friday. Get more information on the History of Portugal podcast on Facebook, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Check out www.eattomyownbeat.com for more information on our travels.